Thanks so much for having me. Quick confession, I've got a bit of a fear of microphones, so that's going to be interesting this afternoon. It's all right most of the time because I do a lot of listening in my job, so that's fine, but I'll do my best today. And the other thing I was going to say is it all right if we just pull that curtain here? Because we're reaching that time of the day where I thought I'd just show you a lot of pictures, maybe a couple of videos, so it'd be good if we could see the screen. Can everyone hear me all right? I never quite know where to hold the microphone. So thanks so much, Andy, for bringing me up here, and everyone today for meeting you and having me here. I am Head of Science Engagement for the Eden Project. I've been there for about 11 years. I'm an ecologist. I actually spent a lot of time looking at big stuff in my early career. I'm intimate with the shores of Egg, where I used to tag basking sharks and other charismatic megafauna up there and sleep in derelict castles on the Isle of Coll and that sort of thing. And then more recently, I've moved into the sphere of microbiology, and that's taken me into human health a bit. And I travel on a boat all over the world, running a lab, looking at tiny, tiny things as a proxy for planetary health, really, and climate change. So that's been my personal career, and I've been very lucky to be the head of science engagement at Eden this last decade. And now I'm, as Andy said, leading on the health and well-being for humans and the ecology part. So it's my job to bring all of those to light for Eden North. I kind of never described myself as an ecologist, which I thought was quite interesting. I always say I'm a marine scientist or a microbiologist or an environmental scientist. And I thought, why is that? And I just thought I'd re-examine again what ecology meant. The branch of biology that deals with the relations of organisms to one another and their physical surroundings. And I just thought, isn't that brilliant? If you take out that first bit that I've bracketed, that the relationship of organisms to one another and their place, that's kind of everything, isn't it? That's politics, that's social, that's art, and that's brilliant. We're here in the series, the fifth in the series of these loves, and that's what we're totally preoccupied at Eden, the connectedness of everything. So it's great to be a part of that. Something we hold dear. So what I thought I'd do today is just talk you through a couple of overarching themes that we're totally preoccupied by, that underpin everything at Eden, and then share with you some of the ideas, some of the things that we're going to do and use to bring to life ecology, particularly in Morecambe for Eden North, if that's all right. So any project that we do is always underpinned by this sense of planetary boundaries, and probably a lot of you in the room are familiar with this. It's the work of the Stockholm Resilience Centre and Rockstrom and others. These are the boundaries within which we have to stay for the health and sustaining of our planet. And we're all pretty familiar with them now. We're all, climate change, ocean acidification, this sort of stuff comes up again and again. I mean, I was quite surprised to look at it again and to see that those two aren't too bad, actually. And it's biosphere integrity, which is biodiversity loss and extinction, and biogeochemical flows, which is sort of chemical pollution in the environment, that are the ones that we're nearly transgressing at the moment. But when you work in environmental science, you realise very quickly, actually, that you're not just working to protect the planet. You're talking about humans, human connectivity and the protection of humans. And it's kind of reminiscent of the Douglas Adams quote, we're not trying to save the world's big enough to look after itself. What we're talking about with environmental science is whether we can sustain ourselves as a species and other living organisms on this planet. I run a series of marine conservation networks in Cornwall, and it's not the ecology that we do, it's not the reef surveys, the species identification, the microplastic trawls that I'm immensely proud of, good though they are. What I love is the human connections, my ecology, my family of ecologists, the connections that happen when we together look around us at our surroundings and we survey stuff and we steward the place that we're from. And from just these small local grassroots things, we've got real relationships. They feel like my family. We've had love, marriage, that sort of thing, all happening from doing this natural ecology together. So when we look at these planetary boundaries, and we're looking for the safe space within which we as humans can flourish and thrive, we realise that actually we're talking about the human boundaries within that. Nobody's going to care about the natural world and the planet if their families aren't safe, if they haven't got food to eat that night, and so on and so forth. So we talk a lot about planetary boundaries, but we also talk about recognising human boundaries in that. This is about a safe space and a flourishing and a thriving that allows this to happen. And actually everything I'm talking about today is of course what Alistair and Miles have touched on, talked about earlier. But I just wanted to bring it back as well to the ecology of ourselves, which Miles has just massively helped with by taking us out and foraging wild foods for our gut microbiome. But you know, we're all familiar with this stuff now. But in talking about us as being a part of nature and not apart from nature, I think it's so important. It's a subject very dear to my heart to remember that we are nature. And because in my job I've swabbed people's belly buttons and grown them on Petri dishes and made art out of it, and we've tested people to see if E. coli is being spread by swimmers in coastal waters, you know, I can promise you that as an ecosystem, each and every one of us, probably not as wild as we should be or once were, but we are as wild, amazing ecosystems of your dry, arid regions and your high mountainous zones and your wet places where the species migrate by day and by night. So, you know, think of yourself as this amazing ecosystem. And if you don't have a garden, and if you are a little bit feeling removed from ecology, and I've had a number of conversations today, just remember, tend your own garden. It's there. And I just wanted to share with you a couple of stories curated with my friend Celine Holman, an exhibition funded by the Wellcome Trust called The Invisible You. Just where everything went with that. So we've got live fecal transplant sculpture. We've got, this is one of the belly button portraits with salmonella and other things in it. We've got the sublime, the ridiculous agar face that's now 4 years old with all the microbes growing on it still, totally covered. And this one, I just wanted to share the story with you. It was a new emerging artist, and she MRI scanned her body and then went around cafes sewing embroidering French knots. She worked with a microbiologist at University College London to learn all about the different microbes that grow in different places. But she went around talking to people about their experience of infections and taking antibiotics and other things to do with microbes while she embroidered. And then she wanted to create an online community, a social network of all the people she'd met so you could continue conversations, which she did on Facebook. And then Facebook banned it because it had this female naked form, and it had a uterus, and it had a fetus, because you probably know that in the womb you are mostly sterile, and you get your first you encounter your first microbes as you move through the birth canal, or if you're born by cesarean section, as you encounter skin, your first contact. So this unknown artist then made all the front pages of the national tabloids. So it was a great story for the sort of microbe ecology and for art, which I loved. And the final thing, the overarching concept that I wanted to talk about was, we talk amongst ourselves about natural philosophy and the re-emergence of natural philosophy, and that sounds quite highbrow. But, you know, 100 years, 150 years ago, before the term science was invented, the people that unlocked the mysteries of the universe were people that were interested in stuff and everything. You know, they were people of society, generally male at the time, but that were interested in cosmology and philosophy, the physical sciences of and chemistry and biology as well, but so much more than that, the human condition, art, culture. And we find that really exciting. And what we're talking about here really is a return to Dr. Doolittle's being a good noticer. It's sort of that simple, really, to thrive and be well and have a place in the world, you have to have an interest in stuff around you. And actually, you know, my one problem with the word ecology is it's about biology, and that's fairly narrow. We need nature for so much more than that. And in fact, it's the lack of understanding that some of the most important parts of the human condition emerge from nature. It's, you know, we need the wild places for our myth and our folklore. The wild places, the wilderness is where the magic happens, you know, that's the root of our culture. But being a good noticer, I think, if there's one thing I can do, apart from forging these human connections through a study of the natural world, is to encourage a few people back to being good noticers, because as we've spoken about today, the digital world, you know, that can make things difficult. And this is a mermaid's purse, which I'm going to come back to later. So bringing it back to Morecambe Bay, so how many people here would already say that they love ecology? That's pretty good. And how many people love Morecambe Bay? So I can take a sabbatical. So that's making my life very easy. I mean, I love Morecambe Bay. I came here, well, it's complete paradise for a marine scientist anyway. I came here for the first time last October. It's my first visit. And I arrived quite late in the afternoon. I got off the train. I went straight down to the foreshore. That's kind of what I do anyway. And I was ferreting around in the flotsam and jetsam on the Strand line, and I was looking at tellin shells, which are those beautiful tiny little clam-like things. That they're yellow and pink and white. We don't get them where I'm from. And I picked up a mermaid's purse, like the one in the image here. No, not that image. That image there. And it had an embryo in it. I've just picked some more up now from the beach. I'll pass it around. But I got really excited, as I do, about these things, and it was just electrifying. Suddenly I had this crowd of about 15 kids that had been kicking a football around me, and just being really excited like I was. And I just loved it. I thought sometimes you just need someone to turn the stone over, don't you? Rekindle something, or just show you something that's there all the time that you've forgotten actually to look at. And I don't find embryos in them that often, so it was pretty cool. So just going to share with you a few ways of doing the very easy job of making ecology exciting for Morecambe Bay. So the first thing that I can promise is that we can put a lid on that view. I mean, it's incredible. You don't get that anywhere else in the world. And what we can do is provide a building that's going to shelter us from the vagaries of the British weather and allow us to appreciate that in comfort and safety. So that's pretty exciting to me. And within that building, we can create a healthy and beautiful, pleasant environment. So we're thinking it would be between 20 and 25 degrees all year round. So to look at the light and the flux of the tide and the sunsets and things within that environment at any time of day or night will be wonderful. It will be full of the planting that Eden's become famous for. Spaces to relax, spaces to be together, spaces out of the wind and the rain. Yeah, so that's, you know, these are things I can most certainly promise. And we know where it's going to be. It's going to be right there. So right on the foreshore, within the most spectacular nature and ecology of the bay, within the flux of that tidal range and the races, the moon cycle, and we will have access to the foreshore and to the end of the stone jetty. And that's really exciting. It's going to be easy to take people back out as well, to actually take them into nature and share that, which is something that really excites me in my everyday practice. So we'll have the inside and the outside. My next job will be to bring to life the sort of cast and crew of characters And how amazing are they? I mean, from the human stories that have gone on here for centuries to the humble cockle and the mussel, which are pretty amazing once you start looking at them in detail. We've got a conger, someone doing a conger with the conger there, that you have these all here. The interactions that are happening out there are amazing. So, again, my subject matter, my cast of characters is pretty easy. I just wanted, can I share a video with you? So these guys here, the video I've got is from Japan, but these guys that we've got out in the bay here, the sea pens, the Cnidarians, the ones here do exactly the same thing. So we'll just... This most incredible, they, when agitated, they move, they dance, and they phosphoresce. So they're sort of bioluminescent, incredible dancing things. And I just read there's been a marine conservation zone designation, and they're there, and they're particularly actually growing around the wind farms where the seabed's not disturbed. But they're called burrowing megafauna because they grow up to 2 meters tall, and they're pretty rare, and they're amazing. So, yeah, there's a plethora, an amazing array of stuff to bring to life. And so to do that, I guess, we've been doing it for the last 20 years down in Cornwall and other places around the world, is we'll use some of the tricks of the trade to bring this stuff to life. We'll use our powers of storytelling, of theatre. We use the latest digital technologies. Digital technologies will work, we'll use art. That's Wolfgang Buttress, who's local to here. He came down and did a thing called Reverie down in Cornwall, which was this amazing chair surrounded by plants, worked with a perfumier as well, so you were kind of surrounded by the scent, and it was connected to the live beehives. You sort of sat in the chair and felt the hum of the bees. And we'll do some tricks of maybe taking aspects of the natural world and turning the volume up on them. I mean, we all felt how delicious it was to just be outside and to have a moment to stop and think. Some of us took our shoes off and walked on the grass, and the feeling of the grass. But it may be that we take people into a room and it's just a total sensorium of smell, or a soundscape, or you take your shoes off and walk barefoot in something that feels like sand or quicksand or whatever. But actually just sort of moments to reflect and feel and activate some of our senses again around these things within a safe environment. We're going to try and use the notion of rhythms, systems and cycles. You know, we've got Morecambe Bay, made by the moon, where the Arctic meets the Mediterranean, that nature's amphitheatre, all these superlatives. It would be wrong, I think, when we have this incredible wash that comes in every day and then goes out and no one quite knows where the water goes to, or the juvenile mussels or whatever, not to talk about this as a lens for ecology. You know, whether it's this sort of moon tidal cycles or the seasonal flows or the migrational shifts or the fluxes. But it strikes me as a really powerful lens that we can look at our planet again, perhaps in a new way. I mean, the things, and I'll just mention, you know, humans within this as well. You know, we're all, as organisms, maximizing our survival. Through migration, through going to work, through maximising our chances of breeding and stuff. And human circadian rhythm and biological rhythm, when it's disrupted, creates all sorts of health problems, exactly as it does in nature. But the thing about these systems and cycles are that just as they can be disrupted, they can also be restored. And I think that's a really powerful metaphor for going back to looking at the planetary boundaries and re-examining how we might actually work together to make some of this stuff right. I mean, I should have probably said earlier that Eden's a charity and a social enterprise, and our motto is that we connect people to each other and to the living world. That's our raison d'etre. And that we show that by working together and with each other, we can leave things better than we found it. So taking this particular theme, I think, for Morecambe is really powerful. Another way that we're going to bring together Ecology of Morecambe is to work with friends. This is probably the most important one to me. I mean, we're going to work with clever, artistic friends, of which Morecambe has a massive network. We have a massive network from where we're from. But, you know, I'm already meeting so many creative people. We already have an arts programme running in Morecambe. So we're going to work with some of them, and then we're going to broker partnerships and bring people together. We've known for quite a long time that we work best as a platform. We know a little bit about quite a lot, but we can't know much about everything. So I'm quite blown away by the amount of expertise there is here in Morecambe about the natural environment. And it's kind of my life's work. Back to dying happy again. I mean, I'd like to carry on, but I can die happy. If the sort of democratization of knowledge, I think, is something that is so important for Morecambe. There's data sets going back here for decades. In fact, most of the study of this bay has been done by amateurs, interested naturalists, community volunteers, and that sort of thing. There's been much less academic research done. And one of our ambitions is to try and make this one of the most understood places in the world. And we can only do that by tapping back into that and working with people. And we're great at brokering partnerships. We're apolitical, we're neutral. You know, so we've got partnerships with Lancaster University, all manner of government agencies around the natural environment, and with community groups as well. So if we can take some of those data sets and re-bring them to life with some expertise in data visualization or in re-examining them in statistical computing ways with other expertise, then that will be an amazing outcome, I think, for the bay itself. And then the final thing is to realize that actually not everyone thinks that they do love ecology, and that's all right. you never quite know where it's going to go when you open a visitor centre, when you write briefs and things come back. This Infinity Blue, this sculpture here, this 9-metre sculpture, we wrote a brief asking artists to bring to life the interconnectivity of all things, and I thought at the time that was a pretty unfair brief. It was quite a wide-ranging thing, and these two, this husband and wife team, came back, created a 9-metre high homage to cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria, what I spent a large part of my life studying. They are the things that created the atmosphere and therefore all life on Earth as we know it today. They were the first oxygen-producing organisms in the world. We're all descended from cyanobacteria. And they created this natural form that puffs out water vapour, that's scented with different epochs of evolutionary history. I mean, it's bonkers. It's got a diffusion line pattern that reoccurs in nature, in coral and zebra. It's so clever, but we sort of didn't expect that reaction when we put out that very unfair brief on that day. And, you know, it has a life of its own, this thing. It groans like a whale, and children come and jump and play and in the smoke rings, the vapour rings. We are going to try and take some of this stuff to the people that can't get out in nature. I love taking virtual rock pools. We go around old people's homes and schools and things, special needs schools and stuff in Cornwall, and we take a paddling pool. And with the old people, we invite them to roll up their trousers and put their feet in a sandbox or in the paddling pool and have an ice cream and re-encounter some of the creatures of rock pooling in their youth. And, you know, it's amazing. I love that photo. But it's amazingly powerful experience to be able to bring some of this wonder to people. And people might think that they don't like nature, but they do like gaming, for example. So you've probably seen some of the digital technology now that's used, the mixed reality, the Magic Leap stuff, where you put on a headset, you can be in a wood, and you can see it through the eyes of the animals. You can go into the mycelium networks, and you're there with all the wonder of the wood and nature around you, but digital technology is bringing to life some of the invisible systems. And the interesting thing about that is there's research going on about digital nature, and some of the benefits that you get from it, of nature, you can get through the digital stuff. So be it sound, or be it people's blood pressures come down, the cortisol levels come down by looking at, I mean, I think I probably get it from watching, or a lot of us get it from watching Attenborough, Blue Planet, the new Green Planet series that's coming out.
Well done, dudes. What a show. What a show. Unbelievable. Very clever. Amazing.
You like that, Dad?
Oh, that was fantastic. Really so good. And the sound with it as well. And the thumping on your pack at the back.
This man here.
You know, so I find that amazing that digital technology showing nature can have some of the health benefits of nature. And, you know, for me as well, you might not like ecology, but you might like eating and drinking. And there's a lot of ecology in a sun-drenched glass of wine or a well-sourced cup of coffee. I can promise food and drink as well. So, you know, that's something that we can really, really share and bring to life. So I just wanted to end today, really, by reminding us of what we've been here to talk about, ecology, the connection of organisms to one another and to the living world, which, as we said earlier, really can apply to anything, to art, to love, to each other. And Morecambe Bay's long had a motto, which is Morecambe Bay, beauty surrounds and health abounds. And we, with the New Eden Project, are really hoping that we can add to that nature astounds. And I hope, you know, I really do want you to bother me today and by email, and wherever we can work together to do that. I'd be really interested in hearing about it. So thank you very much. I'm sorry I kept having to turn away to do the thing, but thank you very much.